where Spurs are concerned, right? The marketing machine that is the English Premier League shines brightly, has shone the brightest around Spurs, because Spurs are in the Big Six. Why are they in the Big Six? Their attachment or their involvement in that is there's an association of being part of the North London derby against Arsenal. Arsenal, who've won Premier League titles. Arsenal, who are one of the protagonists of the early parts, in particular, of the English Premier League, and they've done maybe not as well in Europe as when you think about the absolute big names from England like Liverpool and Manchester United. But the greatest player, arguably, that the Premier League has ever seen has played for Arsenal. They've got an invincible season, and here comes Spurs, who, because they are neighbours and because they are success adjacent. Now they are within those main storylines. They've only won one trophy in the last 15 years. They haven't not won a league title in over half a century. And yet they're part of the Big Six because they are in the right part of the country. They do have like a strong fan base. They make a lot of money because they've got a shrewd ownership group. And as I'm saying, they are success adjacent because they're next to an Arsenal. There's no Big Six. There is no Big Six. Like, Spurs do not belong there. And because also, yes, the other thing is because they've had a purple patch, particularly under Pochettino, along with Harry Kane being there and Heung-min Son coming into his own, where they were finishing in second place. They were looking as though they were challengers for the league title. And that little run, and all those things that I mentioned before, has made them a team where we talk about them where they don't have success, or when they play with this naive style of football where their coach is talking about that they're going to win, and previously he's had success somewhere else. And we are asking the question, is he the right man? Yes, he is the right man. Like, why would he not be the right man? Because he's not winning trophies. Who wins trophies at Spurs? There's no right man. There's no right man who's going to come in. Mourinho, one of the absolute greatest coaches of all time, came, and maybe he would have won that final if they didn't fire him before the final. But he didn't win anything there, right? Yeah. You had Conte, who was a serial winner prior to coming to Spurs, and within months, that man was disillusioned with his job and disillusioned with the mindsets over at Spurs. And he couldn't get them to win anything. There has been a parade of managers, big name managers, and some who are like in the middle of the way. And none of them have led Spurs to a title or consistent run where they are challenging for the absolute biggest prizes. It's a good thing that Liverpool beat them in the 2019 Champions League final. Can you imagine if they fluked their way to a European Cup, and we're talking about Spurs as a big team with a European Cup?
Is this now you speaking of success adjacent in relation to Spurs if they get the European Cup before you?
Exactly. We couldn't let that happen because then we legitimize they stay in the Big Six. So we should not look at Spurs as a big team in the traditional sense that we look at Manchester United, at Liverpool, at Chelsea, at Man City, Real Madrid, Juventus, Inter Milan, those teams. You know, they are in the rung below that. As I'm saying, when Pochettino got them to challenge for the league title, one, they happened upon a Harry Kane who absolutely is world class. You know, Harry Kane more belongs to like at the Bayern Munich than he does at the Spurs. Heung-min Son as well. He's had seasons where when you maybe squint the right way, he looks like a Ballon d'Or contender. You know, he's either world class or just below that. And even there, he was at Bayer Leverkusen. No one really went for him, and Spurs went for him, and it worked out the best it could work out with a player like that. That is not likely to happen a whole lot of times. You'll get a good player, and they're not going to take the jump to being world class or near that, right? Yeah. So look at this transfer window. Spurs spent 65 million on a striker, and it's Dominic Solanke. Nothing against Dominic Solanke, but Dominic Solanke is not in that class of strikers with your Haalands of this world. Maybe not Haaland because he's there by himself, but you don't think he's a guy who was looked at by the superpowers of world football. And this is where Spurs would shop, because this is their brand, this is their history, this is who they are. So as I'm saying, if I'm being very serious about it, we've miscast Spurs. Like if we think about them as a big team in the same way we think about the other big teams, then of course they continue to fail. Of course they continue to fall short. But if we think of them as who they actually are, this is right up their alley. And in their absolute best season, they'll finish in second place. More often than not, they'll be in and around the chase for Champions League spots or European spots, which is where they find themselves, right? In the middle of the table, upper middle table, and that's where Spurs belong. So I look at like the result, and I look at where they finish, and I think to myself, that's just about right.